friends, good to be with you again. I thought today we would talk about Moon square to Venus in the birth chart and what this brings. So the Moon is our comforts. It's our habitual emotional patterns. It's what we're used to. It's a lot of what we've absorbed in the past, and then that seems what's right to us. And Venus is what we want. It's more the superficial, what we find comfortable, our tastes, our food, our preferences, how we want to love and be loved. So with this particular square, people aren't often very good at discerning what they want truly, or who is sincere, and who has positive motivations. They really can't tell those from, people who are good, from people who are users or advantage takers. So there's a need to mature into developing some street smarts, to toughen their ideas of what other people want and what they are about. So there tends to be a lack of individuating from the mother or the nurturing figure, whoever that was in their early lives. That's very much at the basis of what is at this aspect. They're still acting out in ways very much like her. They tend to misperceive people, again, as having pure motivations, and themselves they want to be cuddled and taken care of and breastfed. So there's an unconscious guilt that accompanies hard aspects between Moon and Venus, and this can come from feeling too loyal to the parent and not loyal enough to our own needs. Too dependent on the nurturing parent for sustenance and not depending on ourselves enough. So this is not intentional or even known to the person who has this particular square. They're really reserving their heart for mommy. And this can result in a lack of being comfortable with going all the way in relationships with anybody else, relationships with a contemporary. This aspect really creates this need to dance on the fringe of total commitment, and to really feel generally dissatisfied in any relationship. There's a feeling of needing to move on, of needing to change, needing to find something that will finally fit. A restlessness is built into this within relationships and friendships as well. And they will try people on, and the mate fitting room can be very littered with relationships that are a little too tight or a little too short in the crotch, or the material was too thick, or the print was too loud. There's always a reason for being unhappy, needing to move on, and why it's not working out. So there's always something wrong that keeps them from being content. A lack of contentment is in fact the most obvious result of this particular aspect. There is also a deep need, a hunger for what Venus is: love, attention, acceptance. And this can lead them to accepting less than they deserve. They're not happy without a relationship, but then they find themselves unhappy when they are in a relationship, because it's not comfortable to be comfortable with this particular square. And again, there was often a female caretaker or mother or somebody in the nurturing role that herself is at the basis of this, that she was not satisfied, or she was in a place where she could not get her needs or wants met. So it then translates into an adult that has the inability to really correct correctly understand what their own needs are. And they tend to go through life with this pervasive sense of discomfort when it comes to getting those unknown needs met, because they aren't familiar with what it is to be satisfied. They aren't familiar with what it is to feel full. Their habitual emotional pattern is very much revolving around familiarity with dissatisfaction or with lack. So that's actually what they're looking for in a large way. That's why when they find themselves happy, they can't have it. It makes them insecure. It's time to find something else now. So the revolving door of love keeps on turning very, very often with this particular square. It very, very much affects relationships. Both planets, the Moon and Venus, represent security. The Moon is emotional security and safety, and Venus is the esteem and feelings of worth that we seek that then provide a sense of security. And it's also sensual security. So these things can't quite exist together because they have different styles of each thing. They want something different in each case. So there's this feeling of never being met or happy in any current relationship, and it is a chronic problem. So with man, this particular square shows his inner image of a woman and the expectation of how she will meet his needs, of her behavior is not in line with how she actually is, what her true behavior and what her actual needs are. He doesn't understand her real motivation. And he's very much doomed to find that the women he loves just don't meet his needs or will not go along with what he wants, but yet he's still attracted to her. So it's this frustration. He can experience difficult women because he can't seem to satisfy them. Women with this particular square are themselves difficult in relationships and have a hard time being satisfied with their partner. A feeling of always being hungry. This can also be a physical thing for both people. Both people have that feeling of hard time being satisfied by the partner. For men, though, again, they tend to see it in the women. With women, they tend to see it in themselves. And this can be a physical thing, too, this feeling of dissatisfaction or hunger. A lot of people can feel that they're hungry for what the Moon and Venus mean. Nourishment, sweets, rich foods, art, lovely things, beauty, acceptance, esteem, love. There's a problem with pinning the hunger that the current, come on up here, kitty, pinning the hunger that the current relationship, can't seem to satiate, pinning that, on the person instead of really looking from where that's really, really coming from. It also has an effect on how much money people make. The inconjunction is even more responsible for material poverty than the square, but they're both something that do show that that's an issue. Money's ruled by Venus because it is an outcropping of our self-esteem. How we value our own self has a direct effect on how much money we will charge for our services. We don't tend to put ourselves into positions or, oh, kitty, you're stuck. Positions or jobs that reinforce our self-esteem. It's quite the opposite. We can sell ourselves short. So it's a way of keeping oneself safe from valuing oneself completely. If you made enough, you would have to be satisfied. You would have to let go of reinforcing the story of how you can't make enough or can't get your needs met or can't get what you want. You'll have to reevaluate yourself and your attitude of what it is to take care of yourself if you really want to be happy. It isn't your relationships. You have to learn to meet your own needs before those relationships are going to have a chance to do it. And you have to figure out what those needs are. You have to make sure that you feed yourself before you feed another. And before you find often that then you have no food because of either mismanagement, giving it away. Sometimes it can be laziness that accompanies this particular square. It can be lazy in getting our needs met, or in getting our money needs met, or our material needs met. A lack of discipline does tend to accompany hard aspects between Jupiter and the moon, and Venus and the moon as well. So a deep story that's very much wrapped up in this square convinces somebody that they will never have what they want because they feel undeserving. There's no reason that that has to be true. You have to give up your right to complain. This is an aspect that encourages complaining. Attachment to grievances is something you will have to be willing to give up. Okay. You will have to stop finding safety in selling yourself short, because in doing that, you don't really have to achieve intimacy, do you? Not really. Not if you never get there. If there's always something that's missing, you never get to that step. So we tend to get stuck at the same place when we leave a relationship with this aspect that we got stuck in at the last relationship. There's a deep layer to this aspect that shows a lack of confidence in being able to participate in adult intimacy. The caretaker role model in the early life didn't model happiness through satisfaction. So the adult then that goes forward with that brand of upbringing is so used to being fickle. It makes it just really almost impossible for anyone to make them happy. You have to allow someone to do their best and accept that no one is going to be able to do, or even wants to do, everything for us. The fact that someone with this aspect won't meet their own remaining needs in a partnership, that a partner can't fulfill, makes it a surety that they're never going to find happiness, and that they'll find every relationship lacking. So you have to learn to attend to yourself. You have to learn to start to nurture yourself. And it's a lot about maturing out of that expectation that partners or relationships should be what we use to get our needs met. See, it's interesting because you're trying to do that, but you're never going to be able to do that. So a lot of people do mature out of the tension that this aspect causes, and they do it in their 30s very frequently, because that's a time in life that we often have enough experience that we can start to really consciously understand what is occurring here. So it's a process of stopping feeling dissatisfied through satisfying yourself, and then allowing relationships to be flawed and understanding nobody's going to be able to meet everything. And you can be happy. You can be happy, but it's going to take a different understanding of what your needs and your motivations are for being in relationships and what you want to get out of that. And if you can understand that, then that will translate to you now being able to understand correctly other people's motivations and needs, instead of misinterpreting those or misunderstanding those. So when we achieve self-insight, that translates to insight about everybody else. So it's an interesting aspect, and it is something that does seem to have a huge effect on the happiness level within relationships. So it's an important one to solve. So hope this was helpful. If it was, please subscribe to my channel. And you can find me on the internet at truthandaspectastrology.com, Facebook and Instagram, other social media at Truth and Aspect Astrology. I do private consultation. I am mainly an intimacy and relationship astrologer, but I interpret all types of charts. And please find me over on Patreon and support me over there so I can make more videos for you more often. And I'll be back super soon with more super cool videos. Bye.